is it about cubes? You know, like, it always comes down to the mysterious, ghostly, otherworldly cubes. I can't tell you how many times in works of fiction that cubes have been, like, the centerpiece for, you know, taking over the world, or punching a hole in dimensions, or summoning an outer god to commune with and grant you untold power at the cost of your own soul. Barry is a cuboid, you know, I mean, he's a rectangular, you know, prism cube. He's a cuboid. I think that's the correct term there, and we've seen how much power he has at his disposal, right? Alright, so anyway, it's been a while since we talked about One Punch Man on the channel. It has been a hot minute. It's been so long that when I dug out Saitama's wall scroll back there, it was all wrinkled. Look, it looks like Saitama has a badass scar over the side of his face. Okay, so, among other things that have been going on in One Punch Man, Blast is here now. I feel like that's the main, you know, focus of the seminar we're about to go into here. And, you know what? Considering the way that One Punch Man is set up, and how it takes a lot of these, like shonen tropes and characters and kind of, like, sometimes subverts them, sometimes twists them around in a way that you didn't think was going to go down that certain way, I didn't know how Blast was going to be handled. I didn't even know if Blast was going to be revealed as, like, an actual character. I mean, there have been theories abound in the last few years about Blast, you know? Like, ever since day one, it was like, oh, there's the S-rank 1 hero of the Hero Association, Blast. That's an awesome name. Is it a time-traveling Saitama? Was it Saitama's dad? You know, there were comparisons because, you know, you have Bang's name and Bomb's name. Bang, Bomb, Blast. Is there some relation there? I didn't even know if it was going to be a thing where we're going to be introduced to Blast as a character. It might have been a thing where, like, at the very end of One Punch Man, Saitama's there walking off into the sunset, and he's like, I guess I never will find someone that will be a worthy opponent of my power. I guess I'm just too great. And then Blast appears walking down the streets, and given One Punch Man's comedy and everything, it could either be a moment where they run into each other, immediately see that they're the same and they're like on a similar level of power, and then they just kind of smile at each other and go to punch. Or it could be a thing where, like, Saitama's walking home after the grocery store and he's like, well, I guess I just beat up everybody around. I beat up God, I beat up Garo, there's just no one around, you know, for my strength. And then, on the opposite side of the sidewalk, you have Blast walking down the street coming home from another grocery store, and they just kind of bump into each other, and it's like, oh, sorry, man, yeah, no problem. And it's like, there they were, like the strongest people ever, and they just will never meet. They just like, oh, sorry, I just ran into you on the street. No big deal, have a good night. Okay, you too. Given the comedy, that could have happened, right? But okay, no. All right. So, Blast is here. He's an awesome character. He's got shoulder pads, okay? So, instantly I saw his design, the shoulder pads. The last few chapters, Murata has really been throwing Blast at us in, like, flashbacks and, like, that hallucination we saw with a Mai Mask. The flashback with Tatsumaki, which doesn't happen until much later in the webcomic, is being moved up here. Alright, so, I don't know. I guess I felt like, oh, okay, we're getting to see Blast a lot more. Maybe after the whole Monster Association arc, the next arc is going to be more Blast-centric. Right now in the webcomic, spoilers for the webcomic, but right now in the webcomic, we're getting to know about Blue, who is the purported son of Blast. So I'm like, oh, okay, well maybe after the Monster Association arc, the way Murata's gonna do this is gonna be setting it up like we're gonna get to see Blast more as a character, or maybe not as a character, but we're gonna learn more about Blast, and that's why he's throwing Blast at us so much here. And it's like, no, Blast just shows up. He's just teleporting power, just shows up in the last chapter, says hey to Saitama, warps everybody out, and is probably just going to leave. But, you know, he's there, alright? It's confirmed. Yes, he exists, he's around, he's still doing hero stuff, and we got just a little bit of a glimpse in his life and what his powers are and what his mission is. Alright? And so, let's just get into that today. But if there's one thing to take away from Blast, one thing, shoulder pads, okay? He's got badass armor, which is a new design thing, because in the webcomic, whenever we saw Blast, he had much more of a streamlined, very Saitama-esque outfit. Here, it's like, It's like, imagine if Saitama's strength was known to the Hero Association. Like, they knew how strong he was, and they properly made him, like, at least in lieu of Blast's absence, maybe even with Blast being included, Saitama would be S rank 1, or S rank 0, whatever you want to call, or SS rank 1, or whatever crazy rank they would give Saitama. They would throw everything they could at Saitama. They would give him the best armor, they would give him the best gear, all that kind of stuff. Imagine Blast is kind of like that, where Blast is this supremely strong hero, and so he's got the really cool armor, the really cool shades, he's got sunglasses too, and, you know, that's the kind of person he is, okay? On top of that, in Superman-esque fashion, he also has, you know, Blast written right there on the center of his chest, so it's interesting, because if you went the Superman route with it, you could have just had, like, a giant bee on his chest, but no, it just actually is, like, I don't even know how to call it. It's like the freaking arc reactor like Iron Man has. It's like a circle thing on his chest armor, and it just says Blast on it. You know, it's like literally his hero name is written on him, which might seem kind of silly and goofy to some. You know, the design might seem kind of childish, just writing the character's name. Like, imagine if Saitama ran around with, like, Saitama written on his chest. I mean, like, you'd think it would be silly at first, but Saitama with his character, I think that might actually work. But in Blast's case, it definitely works, okay? I think it doesn't matter what the armor looks like or what's written on the armor. He's got shoulder pads and badass shades. He's got a goatee. He's got sideburns that are, like, at a right angle. So there you go. It works. It just works, okay? He's also got some scars. His armor has some battle damage. Whenever we see him in the flashbacks, you know, like Tatsumaki's flashback, which is like 18 years ago, the armor looks like in pristine condition, like it's brand new, and, you know, he doesn't have any scars or anything. When we see him in the chapter just now, in the current state he's in, the armor has a lot more scratches, a lot more wear and tear, and he has this giant scar right across his face with the shades. So some people might be saying, like, well, right then and there is the confirmation that Saitama is stronger than Blast, because Saitama doesn't have any scars. Also, Blast still has hair, so unless he figured out some way to master breaking his limiter while keeping his hair, or it could be a wig too, that would be hilarious if it's like, oh, it's just a wig, it's really badass, like, hair he's got is standing up, he's got the sideburns, all of that shit's fake. It's just like a wig and then some fake facial hair he just, like, pasted to his body. That would be really funny. But no, he's still got hair and he's got scars. I will admit though, remember, Saitama, it took him about 3 years to go from a regular salaryman to actually achieving the mighty power that he's got now, right? And in that time, like the flashback we saw with King, where King was attacked by that octopus monster with the claws, and that's where King got his scar. Saitama beat up the octopus monster. Saitama was still bloodied and bleeding there, so Blast, he might be getting really close to Saitama, but hey, maybe he's just not quite there yet, okay? But the scar, I mean, I really think what they're going for here is like, okay, let's draw, like, the most common archetype of the badass, super strong shonen hero. Alright, like, let's draw, like, an All Might version in One Punch Man, and that's kind of what you get with Blast, alright? That's what you get. The crazy armor, the hair, the shades, badass scar across his face. You know, his personality is pretty indicative of that as well, so, okay. So what is Blast doing, though? Why is Blast just showing up now? Why hasn't he showed up when aliens literally arrived and, like, nuked all of City A? How come he didn't show up earlier than this when, like, Psychos is fused with Orochi, and you have, like, a giant woman made of light that's, like, literally splitting the ocean in half? You know, how come he didn't show up then, right? Well, it's because he's collecting the cubes. He's got important stuff to do, guys. These cubes aren't gonna collect themselves, okay? So, something that gets brought up a lot in the webcomic, not a lot in the webcomic, but the first read-through of the webcomic, of course, is the introduction of God. Like, literally an entity that we just know as God. And in the webcomic, we literally know very little about this entity. It's a being made of, like, swirling air and energy, and later on appears to be, like, muscle tissue and bone, and it's the being that gave Homeless Emperor his light powers. And that's, like, it. That's, like, all we get in the webcomic, right? And so, in this version, it's like, okay, no, there is a being called God that's going around doing stuff. You know, it's added to not only give Homeless Emperor his power, but also Psychos got a huge power boost from God as well. The way Psychos described it was a giant entity that's like more massive than you could possibly imagine, you know, coming from Psychos. I mean, you know, boobs, and also the giant woman thing. That's definitely a statement. Also, it resembled the surface of Jupiter, you know, like that weird kind of like, it's very visceral, kind of like I said earlier, like muscle tissue, muscle tending kind of thing, but Psychos likened it to Jupiter, okay? And so there's a being like that in existence going around giving powers to people. Like, there's something going on with that. Like, we gotta talk about this. This isn't just gonna be something that's like, oh yeah, it's referenced, okay, whatever, moving on to the next story arc. It's like, no, 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 what was going on with that thing, okay? And so, from what we understand, this being kind of exists outside of space and time, you know, maybe in some other kind of reality, some other kind of dimension, the way it's talked about. And in order to communicate with things in like our world, like in the One Punch Man world, it's got to use these cubes, all right? These super freaking heavy black cubes that are apparently all over the place, because when we see the flashback with Tatsu and Blast, Blast is also collecting the cubes there. So he's been doing this for almost 2 decades now, maybe even longer. We don't know how old Blast is, if he's immortal or whatever, or he's just like 50 years old. We have no idea. But at any rate, this entity known as God kind of maybe exists in all places at all times, like omnipotent, all-powerful, that kind of entity. And anybody that touches these cubes is able to access, or at least able to communicate with God. And God kind of gives them a sort of choice, like, you know, hold the cube, or at least touch the cube, because the cube is very, very heavy. So it's like, touch the cube and make a fervent wish, a very, you know, a very deep wish of something that you desire. And if you are worthy, I will bestow that power to you. And if you are not worthy, you will face confiscation, which, from what we see later on in the webcomic with Homeless Emperor, the confiscation is probably the confiscation of, like, your life, or your sanity, or you get your soul sucked out into the void, or whatever the hell. It's not good. It's not good for you. You get crushed by a black hole. I'm not really sure. It's not good, though, okay? And so, that was kind of an interesting thing that kind of ties back in to what happened there with Flashy Flash, where Flash is like trapped under the rubble, and, you know, it's like, oh, there's something heavy, and like Saitama just rips out this cube, and like, oh, is this it? And Flashy Flash is like, oh yeah, that was it, you got it, I can get my arm out now. And so Saitama just like, whoop, tosses the cube, touches it, but doesn't actually make a wish, just tosses the cube, hits the ground, and just crushes into the ground, right? And so it's like they look through the hole, and they can't see anything, and I think that's just because God is so big. It's like, it doesn't make any sense for God to be in a space like that, so that's what I mean, like, existing outside of space and time, or like in a different reality, okay? And he just kind of like phases around, and he can kind of send the cubes out wherever he goes. But also, at the same time, God also spoke in a very, like, surprised or kind of confused whenever there were 3 people that, like, accessed the cube. Because it's Saitama, Flashy Flash, and also Mona there, you know, the monster and everything. And so the cube was like, there are 3 of you this time. It's like telepathy, like speaking directly into their heads, like, there's 3 of you. That's very unusual. Oh well, whatever. Touch the cube and get your power, or whatever. And so they don't touch it again. Instead, Blast just pops in with his magical infinity gauntlets, like infinity gauntlets. Like, he literally has gauntlets that he presses together, and it makes the infinity symbol. So he appears in the infinity gauntlets. He's like, haha! Greetings, everyone, for I am Blast. You didn't touch this cube, did you? Alright, it's a good thing you didn't touch this cube. And he kind of warps the cube away, and he's like, alright, well, you guys want out of here? And then that's pretty much it. Like, he warps them out of there. They don't really talk to him for that long. Flashy Flash notices who he is, and Blast also knows Flashy Flash, so at least he kind of stays in the loop at least. He's not like traveling around the multiverse constantly. He's at least kept up to speed on what's going on in the Hero Association and all that. And so Flash tries to hit him. Blast just kind of like, you know, easy there, Zippy. Just calm down, okay? It's alright. You know, so it's it seems like he could take out Flashy Flash like literally like a snap of the finger. He could just like, you know, break him if he wanted to, but he decided not to. But he's really strong. Him and Saitama don't have as much of a conversation as you would want them to have. You know, it's just like, are you really strong? Blast is like, well, you know, I don't toot my own horn, but yeah. Saitama's like, I'm pretty strong too. He's like, we should fight. Maybe Blast, even if Saitama did bring that up, I don't think Blast would have just been like, oh yeah, sure, let's fight right here in the middle of this collapsing. I got stuff to do, man. Are you need to lift or not? You know? There was the moment with the monster with Mona there, and so Blast was like, why is there a monster with you? And it's like, okay, where's this gonna go? Is this gonna go like the Amai Mask route, where Blast is like, he really is like supposed to be this, you know, like lawful good, supremely awesome Superman kind of archetype? Is he gonna be on the line of like, all monsters are evil, so therefore I need to like crush this thing as immediately as possible? But Saitama's like, no, this is our monster companion Mona. She's been showing us around the Monster Association and all that stuff. Kind of a tour guide, really. And Blast is like, all right, cool, whatever. You guys need to lift out of here, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, what Blast has been doing this entire time and why he hasn't been around fighting evil? He's a multiverse hero. He's the multiverse hero, probably. Hopping around the universe and all probably multiple universes, collecting these cubes. God is this great multiverse, like, old one, you know, beyond the realms of reality kind of threat, and has been using its power to send these cubes around and, like, probably distort time and things and give power to people like Homeless Emperor and Psychos, which you've seen the devastation that just Psychos could do. With the power that we've seen Psychos exhibit, it's not a far cry to say. In fact, it's very, very likely Psychos would have the power to obliterate planets pretty easily at the peak of her power, right? And so we've seen that also with some other characters around there, right? I'm not sure if Homeless Emperor would be that strong, but like Psychos was, you know, kind of planet busty sort of there in that kind of level. If that's the reality of the situation, and these things are kind of everywhere, and God is really this omnipotent, all-powerful being, and has malicious intent for, like, the universe, then yeah, it would make sense why Blast doesn't have time to, you know, stop by while just any monster, even if it's something that literally could destroy the Earth, Blast's job is just more important than that. Maybe Blast did originate from the Earth. He did originate from, Japan, and he did join the Hero Association at first, but his power just got to the point where he could just warp around or whatever. So it's like, the reason maybe he stays in touch with the Hero Association every now and then is because that's like his humble beginnings. It's like that's where he started. But he's older now. He's been doing this for decades, and that would also explain how he has interactions with Amai Mask and with Tatsumaki. Like, that's where he started. But it got to a point where it's like, my power is beyond the Earth now. It's beyond just protecting this planet. Kind of a little bit of Captain Marvel with this, where it's like, I gotta protect all the other, billions or trillions of planets and universes and galaxies that exist out there in the realms. God spoke to Blast very briefly and seemed very agitated. Like, wait, it's Blast! Blast is here! Damn you, Blast! And, Blast is like, yeah, don't, just ignore that thing, whatever. Okay. And so, yeah, that's basically the reason. And I mean, that's a pretty good reason, understandable there. It's like, oh no, aliens, Boros is attacking City A, call Blast. He's like, Blast is probably in the middle of dealing with like a galactic level threat or a universal level threat. So it's like, not that Blast wouldn't want to help, but it's like, I'm kind of doing more important stuff here right now. I leave the Earth in the hands of the S-class heroes that are supposed to defend it, right? And when it comes to his powers, like the limit of his strength, we have no idea. Other than the teleportation thing, which he can apparently do with his whole body, and he can also, like, warp the cube away. Also, he was able to, like, hold the cube and, like, spin it on his finger, and this thing, it weighs, like, several, probably, like, 100 pounds, if not tons. This thing is super heavy. Saitama was able to lift it no problem, obviously, and Blast is, like, twirling on his finger. So super strength, dexterity, all that kind of stuff. Like, the standard stuff that comes to, like, Superman probably also applies to Blast. So, laser eyes? Does he have laser eyes? Blast has laser eyes. He can probably fly. He can do all that typical stuff, right? It's gonna be, like, more of a diverse moveset than Saitama has, but in a straight-up fisticuffs battle, I'm assuming Saitama would still win, but you just never know, right? And that's just what Blast does, right? Picture him out there sailing through the universe, through the empty vacuum of space, or warping, or, you know, flying around, or whatever. Maybe he can breathe in space or whatever, just collecting these cubes and having a grand old Doctor Who, Captain Marvel kind of time. That's Blast. That's the adventures of Blast. If this was like another more, like, if One Punch Man didn't have the theme like that it does, Blast might be like the main character in like your standard shonen, you know, superhero manga. You know, not trying to do anything crazy, not trying to twist any tropes around or anything like that. It's just your standard superhero manga. Blast is the superhero. He's going around beating down a bunch of enemies every week. That's basically who we're dealing with here. Who's stronger? Once again, probably gonna go with Saitama here, but it would be a pretty damn epic battle. And so the funniest thing is, Blast, from what we understand, isn't even there right now to deal with Psychos or Orochi or Garo or anybody. He's there to deal with the cube. He's not going to be a reoccurring character here right now at this moment, okay? He's probably gonna give Saitama and Flashy Flash and Mona a lift to the surface. It's just like, teleport powers! Warp. And either one of two possibilities. Possibility number one, he just drops them off. Like, he doesn't even arrive at the surface. You just see a portal appearing, and then Saitama and Flash and Mona just get dumped out on the ground, and then maybe you hear his voice from the portal like, hey, just let me know if you see those cubes again, bye! If you see those cubes, don't touch them, bye! And just disappears, and then we don't even see him arrive on the surface, and he's just gone. But the second option, which I'm hoping this would happen, this is probably the best we could hope to get right now. Blast appears, drops off Saitama and gang and everybody, and then he's like standing there looking around the battlefield, and he's like, wow, there's a big battle going on here, man. This is crazy. Be careful. Even though you defeated, like, the big boss, like Psychos, I sense another threat that's even stronger than her. So you should be careful. But I gotta get going. I got stuff to do. I gotta hop over to the Andromeda Galaxy and then over into, you know, Dimension C-137. There's this guy named Rick Sanchez, and he's just causing... I got stuff to do. I'll be back, though. Don't touch those cubes if you see them. And then he's just gone. He's not gonna fight Garo. He's not gonna fight Psychos if Psychos and Orochi figure out some way to, you know, build back up again, or there's some other crazy threat going on. He's not going to stick around for that, because it's just like, it's not that, like, it's beneath him, but it's like, there's other stuff I need to do right now, okay? You know, there's others, like, oh, I have the cube alarm. There's other cubes somewhere. I gotta get going, right? And so, you know, Saitama's like, what's with the cubes, man? Is it like his lunchbox? Maybe he's hungry. I don't know. But yeah, he's not going to stick around to fight Garo and whatever the hell is going to happen next, right? So at most, I hope we get maybe a little bit more dialogue, but he's going to skip out, and at least we know what he looks like now, and everybody's been interested in him. I mean, you can only keep him a mysterious figure for so long, right? You know, like, it's kind of like in One Piece with Kaido. Like, we talked about Kaido for years and years and years. Like, at some point, it's like, all right, he was a mystery for 1 year and 2 years and 3 years. Like, how many years does it get to the point it's like, okay, are you gonna show the dude or aren't you? You know what I mean? So maybe that's what they're doing. It's like, okay, we've been talking about Blast for freaking years now. It's like, we have to actually at least show him that he exists and what he looks like and what his personality is like, and then he can leave. He doesn't have to be like a core member of the cast. He doesn't have to join the main cast. Like Blast and Friends is the next arc or whatever. But we have to at least see what the dude looks like, okay? And see that he's out there doing other stuff, all right? But at any rate, yeah, Blast is here. Probably not to stay, but we might get some more of him next chapter, and then I guess with Saitama on the surface, we can kind of move to the latter part of this arc, which is going to involve some Garo action, and I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing the Saitama and Garo fight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and remember, watch the cubes. Watch the cubes.